the pinnacle of human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Well, once I got past my initial excitement about the Mandela Effect, that there was indeed something definitely going on that was crazy and impossible, I definitely had a reaction that wasn't good for a while, at least a few days. And, because once you realize impossible things are happening, I did things I would never think I would have ever done. There was times when I actually wondered if I died, or, something like that happened. And then, there's no shortage of stuff on the internet to get you scared about stuff. But another thing that crossed my mind at one point, I actually had to go and check the year. I was not even sure that I hadn't jumped through time or something. I just stuff that you would never think you would ever do. I started doing those sorts of things. So although I have a really positive outlook on the Mandela Effect now, I did have a time of it being pretty scary because, when you first discover it's real and you start talking to people, I called up family members or texted family members, told them about stuff, they weren't hitting me back. I'm like thinking, well, they're just having trouble dealing with it. And then I hit them back a few days later after, thinking they had to have some time to deal with it. And then they just either didn't hit me back or they just acted like it was no big deal. And all that did was fuel my nervousness and trepidation about the whole thing. But, then I started realizing, if I am dead, it's okay, I started just feeling okay about everything. And, it was bizarre the way people just didn't notice. It was worrying. But now I have a very positive outlook on it. And I guess I'd known about the Mandela Effect I'd actually known about when I thought it was just, a theory people were throwing out. I've known about it for about a year, but just like flat earth or anything else, you just kind of check it out, put it on the back burner and not really give it much thought. And so, yeah, at some point, when I did realize it was indeed something going on, and then I went through that initial excitement followed by nervousness. And then I started looking at it positively, realizing that, for somebody to do these things, because I could tell with some of the changes, it wasn't accidental, which was sort of my first fear was that, maybe they got on these new quantum computers, was toying around with something and, were accidentally making the changes. And I thought some of the changes, especially when I got to the Bible and saw those changes, it almost looked like some teenage hackers got in there and just started hacking up the Bible, and all that was troublesome for me at first, but it forced me to realize that things that I considered before to be impossible did indeed happen. Impossible things do happen. The Mandela Effect isn't just a theory. For people who realize it, it's a very real thing, and I decided to try to look at it positively, that whoever made these changes, especially with the JFK, it was so surgical in its precision of how it was changed that even a time traveler couldn't have gone back and, adjusted some things to make it work out the way it did or whatever. But when I realized my first glimpse of the Matrix after this whole thing, my 20-year-old daughter, she's got a 1-year-old baby, my first grandbaby, and she came over. She was going to go to, I guess, a baby shower or something. So she dropped off the baby with my other daughter, and she watched it. And, I told her about the Mandela Effect. She ended up going off to her shower, coming back, and then she was like, I want to hear more about the Mandela Effect. She totally saw it right away. I saw her eyes get all big, and she realized it, you know. And so we talked about it for a while. I showed her some stuff. She ends up leaving to pick someone up, and then I had to leave to go pick up my wife. And she left a minute before me, but we went out of the neighborhood 2 different ways to where I got through a traffic signal, and she went out another way where she had to wait for traffic. And I ended up driving by, you know, her waiting to pull out into the traffic with, you know, my grandson with her. And I saw her, of course, I waved, I honked, and then I got caught at the next light, and I'm sitting there at the light, totally forgot I just passed her, and I hear this screech and slam, and look up in the mirror, and like I said, I'd already forgot I just passed her, but when I looked up in the mirror and I saw that, you know, this Mustang that had sped by me had, you know, rammed into the front of her car, and I just see dust and everything flying everywhere. And I've wanted to share this for a while, but as you see, it's emotional. But looked up in the mirror, saw, you know, slammed in reverse, pulled back as fast as I could, and, you know, as soon as I stopped the car and I'm getting out, I hear screaming, you know, and you know, and of course I'm thinking the worst, you know, and I run up to the cars, you know. He had hit her so hard that she turned completely, what would that be, 90 degrees to where the cars were side by side. So he hit her like this. And, you know, I'm running up to the car thinking, oh my God, you know, what's the screaming? Is that the baby? It just didn't sound like the baby. It didn't sound like her. And turns out the guy in the Mustang had, you know, his kids in the car and the airbags deployed and smoke's all coming out the window. His kids are freaking out, you know. I get up to the cars, I look in, and I see my grandson in the back, you know, looking around smiling, you know, and I'm like, what the heck, you know? And I check her, and she's, you know, still in shock at the wheel, and I'm like, it's okay, everyone's okay, you know, and the guy's kids were crying, but they were okay. Just everyone was scared and shook up and everything. And I breathed that sigh of relief that everything worked out all right, you know. Well, this guy gets out, as soon as he sees his kids are all right, he, you know, he doesn't realize that's my daughter, I guess, and he's like someone else, I guess, had been following him, and so he says, he goes, who's that driving the car, you know, and he sort of comes up between the cars where I'm at the window, and I'm like, hey, man, it was an accident, you know, it was an accident, everyone's okay, this is my daughter, you know, it was an accident, you know, everyone's okay, and I just kept saying this over and over again, you know, and I felt for the guy, because, you know, Mustang, I've always wanted a Mustang. I love Mustangs and everything, and I felt bad for the guy immediately. You know, I felt bad about his kids freaking out, screaming and stuff, and, you know, I just had empathy towards the guy, you know, and, you know, and then as soon as I sort of had and, you know, and that's one of the things, part of my awakening with this whole thing is before I would have, you know, bucked up and, you know, tried to be tough and become a barrier between this guy and my daughter, but instead, I was just empathetic about the whole thing, and, you know, I got the guy to calm down, and then the guy that was with him took his kids away, and he was getting him to calm down, and, you know, everybody calmed down, and, you know, I look back in the back seat again, and, you know, my daughter's like, everybody's okay? I'm like, yeah, everybody's okay. The baby's fine, you know, I'll take the baby. I go over to the Quick Trip parking lot, right next to there, and, you know, I take the baby with me so it's not out in the middle of the street, and, you know, they're waiting on police and everybody to show up, and I'm just sitting over there looking at my grandbaby that's just smiling up at me, you know, and it was incredible, you know, everything had worked out. But the funny thing happened at that moment is I saw this whole situation as like a movie set. I don't know if part of it was because I kind of was out of the middle of it, and I pulled off to the side with the baby, and then was just kind of watching to see what was going on, to see if my daughter needed me or whatever, and the police are showing up, emergency vehicles are showing up. I look over, my daughter's hugging some lady, and I'm like, who's she hugging, you know? And she works at a place that, you know, she probably has a lot of a lot of associates that she works with and customers, so I just figured somebody like that, you know. But it ended up being the grandbaby's, or the baby's grandmother. And And I began to see how everything was orchestrated. It wasn't coincidental that this happened. And I was sitting over there looking at my grandbaby smiling up at me, and I felt so guilty because I had just, you know, she's been driving for, you know, over a year and never had any wrecks or anything like that. And I tell her about this mind-bending Mandela Effect thing. Then I'm honking at, you know, like honk as I'm driving by. I totally felt like it was my fault. I felt like I distracted her with the Mandela Effect, and then with me honking at her. And I just felt so much, and she'll tell you to this day, she doesn't blame me for it, and she doesn't feel like it was my fault. She said she didn't notice me honk and that the Mandela Effect. But I know how mind-bending it is, you know, and I know that she got it. So it was troubling for me for a while, but it wasn't coincidence. It was all orchestrated for me to see how everything is put in place. This is like a play or a movie where we're tested and we're put in situations where we're tested, you know, and we learn things from our situations, and we can either come out smarter in the end or bitter, or, you know, it's really up to how we take it. But as I looked over there, and, you know, and I think, what's the chances of, you know, me being right there? Because she told me later on, she goes, I'm so glad you were right there, and it helped so much that you came up and let me know everybody was all right, because I was just frozen in shock, afraid that, you know, because the baby wasn't even crying, you know, and that kind of startled me too when I heard it was the guy's kids screaming. And I didn't hear the baby crying. Oh my God, I was freaked, you know. And when I saw his smiley face, it just made it all right. And so I happened to be there, and then the baby's grandmother was there as well, and she was giving her a hug. So I wasn't over there to give my daughter a hug because I was with the baby, but someone else was over there that she knew and was close to, and, you know, I began to see this whole thing as being just a scene in a movie where everybody was playing their parts, you know, and I began to realize the intricacies in life. I mean, it really is like a game, or if you can imagine like a game, what they're able to do in games nowadays with little triggers that cause certain things to happen. And then, I don't know if you guys know about, there's things called Easter eggs in games where you, outside of the normal gameplay, there's like little extra things that game designers put in there that you can find. And if you do, you might be able to play a hidden song or do different things, you know. And but nothing, you would never be in the middle of playing a game like that and think, oh, this is coincidental that this piece is here, you know. And that's how life is. There is no coincidences. And so to wrap your head around that is powerful. So if you really think about, you know, if say you were given an opportunity to take a job in Florida, and you're like thinking about it, you flip on the station, there's like a Florida orange juice commercial or something, you know, we think it's coincidental, but it's not. It's all there purposely. And if the game designers can do all this stuff inside these games, then think of how much more intricate real life can be and still be designed and everything be purposeful. So I can see this video is already getting pretty long. I want to move into some other things, but I'm going to make it a separate video. So I'll keep this as just a video to let anybody that, because I just came across a comment where somebody said, oh, this just got real. You know, they're realizing the Mandela Effect isn't just a theory. They've had their 100% item. And, you know, so just let this be an encouragement to you all. If you have come across a Mandela Effect, it's nothing to fear. It's, in fact, I believe it's a good thing. And just relax and know that everything happens for a reason. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I have more uplifting information coming down your way. Thanks.